let's use some templates. In today's episode, we're going to look at Mustachio, which is a Nimble library. Install it with the Nimble utility, and it is a templating engine. Let's get directly into what this means. Here in the example from their repo, we see there a string being built, and in there we've got some curly braces surrounding certain named elements in the string. And then later we're introducing a context which has those named elements in it. And essentially when you hit render here, it inserts these values into the string. Not too far different than what you can get out of string format, but it has a few extra bells and whistles. For example, here we have a conditional. If NCA is set to true, show this string. If it's not set to true, don't show it. And in fact, there's really only two extra bells and whistles in this system because it's referred to as a logicless templating library. But basically, you can either insert or not insert included text. That's one type of logic you can have in there. And the other thing is you can have lists. You have an array or a list of elements that are repeated over again in the string that you're generating. Now, in this particular example, they're using their own construct called a context to build the values that'll be inserted into the string, but it also supports JSON, which is what we're going to do. We're going to use JSON as the target for going into the template. It also supports pulling directly from the local file system, which is how we're going to use it in the context of a web server. But you don't have to. I mean, you could have pre-compiled strings for your whole website, and there's a mild performance advantage to that, since you're never accessing the hard drive once the thing's in RAM. Probably not enough of a performance advantage to make it worthwhile to have to recompile your website every single time you make a change to any of the text in the website. It depends on the website. Now, Mustachio is based on the Mustache library, this right here. And you can see that's actually been rewritten in many languages, but I believe it started out in Ruby. And the philosophical premise of it is that all this thing does is direct insertion of strings. It's not meant to have any logic in it. In fact, its selling point is that it won't do a lot of things that other templating engines do. For example, if you pass in a date string into Mustache, or in our case, Mustachio, it will simply convert it into a text string using the $ string conversion that's built in the NIM. That's it. It will not format that date string. It cannot do localization or internationalization. There's really very little you can do with it because the idea is that the template is the wrong place to do logic. You should be doing all of that work in your code, and the templated engines, its sole purpose is basically to spit that back out into the HTML. One of the benefits of that is that in a large project, you have one less thing to really think about. If you're looking at, say, the format of a date string or the format of some kind of output that's being generated by the code, you don't have to ask yourself, is my templating library doing that or is my code doing that? I know in this case, I'm using Mustachio. It's in my code. Now, this is a philosophical stance. Is this the right way for the whole world to do things using logicless templates? Nah, I think there's pros and cons to everything. In fact, one of my favorite templating engines is Jinja, used in Python, and it is very much not logicless. It gives you a phenomenal amount of power within the templating engine itself. Although I do appreciate the simplicity of this, to making it one less place to look for bugs. So before we actually start putting this into our code, though, we really need to design our website. So I'm going to do it on old-fashioned paper. I'll be right back. I'm back, and I've thrown together a few notes about how I want the website to look. Basically, this is the overall template here. What I want up here in the upper right-hand corner is a little logo, and if you click on that, it takes you back to the home screen. On the right-hand side, I want a drop-down list with login and create account when you're not logged in. But when you are logged in, I want admin, my clubs, and log out. And whether you're logged in or not, I want the search clubs feature to be available. Down on the lower right-hand corner, I want an about link. And on the left-hand bottom corner, I just want it to say virtual book club, but it's not a link of any kind. And then in the center is where we want the content of whatever page we're looking at to be. Uh, Most likely with some sidebars so that this can be a more responsive site where we can control the width on a desktop environment and let it shrink down as needed to handle responsively handle a phone or some kind of mobile app. And then below the top bar, if you're looking at a particular club, I want another bar to show up with the club name on it. And of course, if you're not looking at a club, then this will disappear and you only have the top bar. All right. There's a logo I put together real fast, nothing fancy. This is, after all, just a test website. Now, if you're logged in, or if you're not logged in, the index page, I want it to have some text here describing the virtual book club and then the top 10 clubs, and you can go view them without being logged in. If you are logged in, then I want the index page, the main web page for the website, to simply list the book clubs that you belong to. And of course, if you're already a member of the website, you can in fact still do the search book club to find more book clubs to join. If you do select admin, it starts off in a main admin page for the user that's logged in where you can change your password. And if you have any clubs that you've created, you can then click on links to the list of clubs that you can, so you can administrate them. What's missing here is actually a create new book club button of some kind. We'll put that on too. And if you click on any one of the clubs to administrate, you can rename the club, we can do a deletion on the club. These are all, this little symbol here, that's me telling myself that this is a modal. So a little dialog box will pop up using JavaScript on the same page that you're already on, allowing you, for in this case, to rename the club, and then when you hit save, it refreshes the page as a whole. So essentially these are all forms that only appear in a modal manner, so only one form will appear. It disables all the other buttons on the page so that you only can change one thing at a time. A description of the club, and you can edit that with a modal. The books that are assigned to the club, whatever one's on the top is the current one, so maybe some kind of marker here showing current. You can edit details about the book, or you can delete the book, and another button allows you to create the new book. And here's an example of a modal, by the way. When the modal pops up, it says new current book. You can put the title, the author of the book, the description of the book, and maybe an URL where a person can go get the book or read it or what have you. Depends on the book, I'm sure. This will be largely just open-ended text. And of course, for a book club, you'll have events that you can schedule. So here we can see a list of events. You can edit the event or you can delete it. And of course, you'll have this thing's hovering over there, but down here at the bottom, there'll be a new event modal of some kind. So when you're visiting a club, if you're going in as a stranger, in other words, you're not logged in, you will not see these buttons, nor will you see the forms, but you can see what books are in the club and the events. If you are logged in, but not a member, you will see the join button. And if you are a member, you can see the leave button, makes sense. And then of course you can also, if you're a member, see the forms available that are associated with any one book. Now, I didn't put up every single page. In fact, we go back here and look. I didn't put up an about page. I didn't do the login and create account screens and that type of thing. Some of this we'll make up as we go, but this is just the general layout and structure of the thing, a place to get started, if you will. In fact, let's go ahead and code this up. What I want to do is I want there to be one template file for the entire website. We might as well just put that one, might as well put that one in as a large string constant, since that's not going to change. But also, let's create individual files for each of the individual contents for each of those pages. So let's get started. All right, we're done with coding. Start right from our app.nim where we left off in the last episode. I am importing views and miscellaneous. Actually, all miscellaneous is I move the check email format function into there, and I moved a routine I use a lot. It's called dedent. I'm kind of surprised it's not built into nim as a whole. Basically, it takes a large multi-line string like this. This is where I'm using dedent, so I can tab in and make it look better. All dedent does is it removes the left-hand spacing. That's really all it does. It's kind of a useful utility. And if you put it into a constant, it does it at compile time. All right, back to app.nim. I have a pair of clubs and the information about those clubs I'm putting into a JSON array. But let's go ahead and jump into, I'm not going to look at this whole thing at the moment. Let's just concentrate on the index page, the home page. I am building a JSON object, and in there I'm putting the page title, and I'm putting in whether a person's logged in or not, jbool false. Also putting in the list of top clubs, the thing I just built up here, so I can actually get to that information on the home page. And I'm responding with a function I wrote called showPage, and I'm passing in the name of the file. I've written an index file right here. It's index.html. This index references index.html. I'm passing in the content I just created, and I'm passing in our list of errors, which on a home page there'll be no list of errors. So that's an empty list. Let's go ahead and take a look at this new function I wrote, showPage. That's what's in nim. I mean, that's what's in views.nim. It's all in nim. Here at the top of this, I've got my general template, and we'll go through this in just a moment. And here's showPage. Here's that page file I've been passed in, and in fact it references a subdirectory called pages, and then it'll be index.html. So it references this file. It pulls it in as a string, that text file as a whole. Before I get into that, it's first turning our message list into a JSON array. It's also pulling in that list, calling it core, and it's rendering it with our content. So it's rendering it once there, and then it's putting that new content into the center of our template up here in a variable called core_HTML, and then that's being rendered in. So this content array will be seen both by the inner file and the outer file, the general template. Let's go ahead and take a look at that outer template right here. And here I'm pulling in from a file. Here I'm actually pulling in from the constant called general template, this right here. This is a standard HTML document, and if you pull down here to center into the middle, here's core HTML. So down here, when I'm putting this in, I'm taking that rendered center of the file and pushing it into the template, the overall general template for the thing. So all of this code, the HTML, the header, the first part of the body, and the final part of the body, these will be consistent for all of the pages. I don't have to keep rewriting it or keep reinserting it. It's pretty much automatic by always calling showPage. I can automatically pull both the inside of the web page and having it wrapped by the outside of the web page. So let's go ahead and go through this. Here we're pulling in a style sheet. It's Bootstrap 4.3. This isn't a course on Bootstrap, but it's if you're not familiar with it, it's both CSS and JavaScript files that are designed to make a fairly responsive and nice looking website without you having to actually be an artist and know what looks good. And so here at the bottom of the page, we're pulling in all the scripts that are related to Bootstrap. Let me go ahead and show you the website for Bootstrap. Oh, actually, that's the website. I'll get to that in just a second. Here's Bootstrap. Here we can see all the different kinds of things. Here's a Jumbotron. I use that on the home page. Here's cards that you can insert. So it makes nice HTML cards. You can do badges. All kinds of stuff. It has a great way to make forms look good. So here's some nice forms, and here's the code that generates that. I use Bootstrap for quite a few projects. It's a bit big, so you're automatically increasing the size of your web page by using Bootstrap, but from a programmer's point of view, it really speeds up the development of a website. Now, some of my bigger websites, I do a little bit more streamlined. I use custom CSS and custom JavaScript, but for a quick and easy website, this is a great way to get started. Let's get back to our code. Here in Bootstrap, they have something called a nav bar. So here I'm doing a drop-down menu with a navigation bar to be at the top of the page. In fact, here we can see the first of the Mustachio templating coming into play. So if you're logged in, it will show you how to log out. If you're not logged in, and that's what this caret symbol means, so not logged in, and it blocks with the slash logged in at the bottom. Same thing here. This is both used for Booleans and used for lists. So if this were a list, it would go through all the elements in there, printing this out over and over again. If it were not a list, it's a Boolean. Or if it's anything else, it just does a truthy, falsy decision on it. If it's empty or missing, it's false. If it has something in it, it's true. And so that's really how it handles this right here. So if you're not logged in, it shows you the ability to log in or to create a brand new account. It's got a divider, and then it has a place for doing administration. This is only if you're logged in. You can see your clubs if you're logged in. And then whether you're logged in or not, everyone sees the search clubs link. Here's a message box frame, which is again part of Bootstrap, where I can put in my error messages. Here I'm going through, remember this is how to go through a list or to make a decision if something's Boolean or not. So I'm going through message list, which is an array in my JSON document. So message list, and then if it's a straight list, in other words, it's not a list of dictionaries or a list of objects, you just use the period to represent the actual item itself. So here you're displaying the period. By the way, notice most of these things are using a pair of curly braces that represent the breakout that you're doing something. But down here I'm using 3 curly braces for the actual core HTML. What the difference here is that if I have something that has something that looks like HTML elements in here, but it's supposed to be data, it will escape that data for safety and for a variety of other reasons it does that. But if you want to insert it as is, you do triple curly braces, and that's the difference between those two formats. So it goes looping through all the error messages, and then it inserts the center of this into what they call a container in Bootstrap. And down here we have a nav bar at the bottom. We got a link over here. It says virtual book clubs, so we'll have a bar at the bottom of the page now. And here's our JavaScript again. Let's go ahead and take a look at our index page. Here I've got something called a Jumbotron in Bootstrap. This is the div with the correct class. It creates a great big welcome to virtual book club title at the top. It's got a lead item, and it's got a paragraph down here. And here's a list of the largest book clubs surrounded by H2 and another div with another list. So here we're doing, again, we're looping through the array of club list. In this particular case, because club list contains a list or an array of objects, you can actually access the elements in those objects within the loop. So here I got the name, here I've got the member count, and I've got the club ID. And if you go back and look at our app, name, club ID, member count. And again, I'm just putting these member counts in as a string because in the end, Mustachio is really meant for string manipulation. Although in this case, if I had done it as an integer, it would have totally worked because if you do a $ expression against an integer, it will be turned into a string. So it would have worked anyway. So I could have done it either way. But back to index. So it's going to show us our list of top clubs, which I only have a list of 2 in there right now. Again, in the next episode, we're going to go back and start doing database queries so I can actually get this live out of the database. But for now, we're not at that point yet. So I just did a hard code here. Let's go ahead and save my work. I already know this should work, but let's just make sure. Compiled it all, run app, and go here, and there it is. Here's the title bar, our nav bar we have at the top. Here's our footer down at the bottom with book clubs and about. Now I've only done the 3 pages we've already worked on, getting back to the code here. I've done the index page, I've done the register form, as well as the post versions of that, and I've done the email sent, or what was the hello page. Now it's got an email sent page that shows up, but it has basically the same function. Let's go back to the website here. And now I've got a drop-down menu over on the right, and because we're not marked as logged in, I'm not seeing all 6 of the items, only seeing the 3 that apply to me. I can log in, I can create an account, or I can search clubs. Now, login and search clubs I've not written yet. We'll do that later. But this one's written, create account. So I click on there. Boom, here's a register form, all prettied up with Bootstrap. If I don't fill anything out in here and just hit submit, here's our 2 error messages. Missing @ symbol and the email is empty. And because Bootstrap has an alert function, I don't have it to where it automatically disappears, so you have to kind of close them on your own if you want. Or I can type in an email address and send it on, and boom, now we're at the email sent URL. And register your email sent, your new password is sent to your email address at larry@larry.com. Use the new password to log in. And then, of course, you would log in. Now, again, that's a 404 because I've not written the login page yet. I've also not written the about page yet. We got a lot of pages to write still. But we got those 3 running. And that's a good kind of demonstration of where you'd use Mustachio. If you need further documentation on Mustachio, you can actually just go to the mustache documentation that the library is based on. There are a few things that it cannot do compared to the library that this was based on. Let's go ahead and take a look at the file structure we have in our directory right now. Here's our files, our source code files. Here we have our app that we wrote. We have a pages directory now that has the 3 pages we wrote. And we have a public directory and an image subdirectory, and that's where I put the logo at. It's probably the wrong size, and I'm sure I'll be tweaking and tweaking before we're finished with this. So what we're going to do next is, in fact, just jump in to start using databases to make this a more usable website instead of having hard-coded responses everywhere. I should also note there is more than one version of Mustache available for NIM. There is the Mustachio library I'm showing you right here, but there's also a more recently written one called NIM Mustache. Here's the website for it. I've not tried it myself, but give that a try too. In fact, they even mentioned Mustachio is the alternative. So you've got options with this library. So thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next video.